This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Currently, you can get free delivery on all orders over £40 and 10% of all online orders by using our code of TakesThatChance10.
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance! Play down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounier! 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League. 1-2 wicket Tunga. Here's Moy, right-footed. 1-0 Huddersfield Town. Lindelof misses his header. De Quattro's in. Round De Gea. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. Here's Sanka to turn it into the pass. Yes! And Tommins scored. Tommins has scored one of the most important goals of Huddersfield Town's history. De Quattro's forward. De Quattro's got the better. Yes! And Laurent De Quattro scores. Laurent De Quattro scores.
Welcome to Andy Takes That Chance, the warm-up, episode 25 no less. You'd have thought we'd all be fully warm and limber by now, but no, you can never stretch too much. And it also seems from my intro that you can always keep stretching and stretching, whether that's muscles or the same old tired material. Joining me on this episode, I have one half of the famous examiner duo. It's the chick from the Chicken Trick, otherwise known as Utabia Stephen Chicken. To do, Mr. C.
Hi, Matt. How's it going?
I'm all right. You?
Yeah, good. I like to think of you as Andy from Andy Takes That Chance.
Andy Takes That Chance, yeah. It's the Yorkshire accent, isn't it? Okay, so we'll move on to... So Huddersfield Town versus Sheffield Wednesday is what we're here to preview. So Town coming off the back of an excellent victory at QPR, now head to Hillsborough to face Sheffield Wednesday. Hillsborough, a ground that has seen 27 matches between the two clubs, resulting in 9 wins for Huddersfield, 11 for Sheffield Wednesday, and 7 draws. One curious quirk, Stephen, was that for 3 years running, the score was 4-1 at Hillsborough, twice in 1954, and then the next time they played each other in 1958. If we're looking for memories at Hillsborough, then we don't have to go back too far. Indeed, the penalty shootout winning the playoffs is perhaps the finest evening I've spent watching Huddersfield Town ever. The 4-4 with Jordan Rhodes scoring all 4 goals was quite something, and the 2-0 win back in 2010 when Anthony Pilkington was in that rich vein of form has a fond place in my memory bank as well. So some good memories away at Sheffield Wednesday for you as well, I would guess, Stephen.
Yeah, Hillsborough is always an interesting ground to go to. It's weird as a neutral media because you're up all the way at the back of the stands, which is and it's a big stadium, as you know, so you can't see anything. And the worst thing I think with Sheffield Wednesday and Town are not so bad with this is just the numbers on the back of the shirts tend to be basically invisible. You always get that with your stripe, with particularly blue and white stripes. It's always impossible to read the numbers. So that was less good about going to Sheffield Wednesday. But they always did a good pie in the press room. Sadly, no food at games these days. Terrible.
It's all gone a bit moose by TalkSport there, hasn't it, towards the end? But let's have a look at the...
I know. I'm sorry. I mean, this is obviously the great tragedy of the coronavirus is that like the press don't get food at games anymore.
The great tragedy is Moose has gone hungry at TalkSport. That's what we're taking away from this. Right, okay.
Basically.
So the form guide. Sheffield Wednesday had lost 6 games in a row until today. These are my notes from last night, and they've just lost to Norwich 2-1. So now 7 games in a row. Town, on the other hand, are slowly rousing from the New Year blues and are now unbeaten in 3, and over the last 6 have quite a healthy 1-2 drawn 2 lost 2. Nice mid-table form, that, Stephen. Last time out, it was Huddersfield Town 2, Sheffield Wednesday 0. It was the game which caused great sadness for me and this particular instrument here, the conch, and because it was Josh Karoma who sadly got injured, didn't he? What were your memories from that game? There was a great free kick from Isaac and Benzerin and amongst that as well.
Yeah, literally none, because I didn't cover that game. No, I did watch it. I watched it at home, and I remember when Mbenza stood over that, and I remember thinking, I fancy him to score here, and lo and behold, he does. But I mean, it was such a routine win. It was, you had those back-to-back games, the QPR game and the Sheffield Wednesday game, where Town just got routine 2-0 victories, and you know they made it look very easy. I think Sheffield Wednesday didn't offer very much, and similar to that QPR game, they made it. They defended really poorly against Town. So, and from what I gather, that's pretty much been them this season. You know, they've been really poor all season. Obviously, you know, on our site I speak every day. Well, not every day, but close enough to Dom House and our Sheffield Wednesday correspondent, and you know he's been increasingly in the doldrums as the season's gone on, not least because he is actually a Town fan. So, yeah.
Okay, so we'll delve into some of the strengths and weaknesses of Sheffield Wednesday. So Darren Moore's just come in from Doncaster, Stephen. A surprise appointment, maybe, some would say. He was doing quite well at Doncaster, top 6, done a decent job, did a steady job at West Brom as well. What do you make to that, and where Sheffield Wednesday may go under him?
Yeah, I mean, I think at West Brom there's a bit of a similar thing to what Town had with Lee Clark, where a lot of outsiders were going, it's disgraceful to have sacked him, and the fans were going, well, no, we should have gone up automatic though. He's underperformed. But you're right, he's done a good job at Donny, and it is, you know, anyone I've spoken to sort of who doesn't cover Sheffield Wednesday, all they've said is it's hard to figure out why he's taken that job, to be honest, because Donny and Wednesday could almost cross over from Championship to League One and vice versa. I know that when you're in the playoffs, it's by no means a sure thing. So perhaps he felt if he wanted to get a Championship job, this was the one to jump at. Perhaps he just fancied his chances of getting them safe. But obviously, they've got off to they've got off to a losing start under him. He's not picked up a single point yet. He's not been able to turn them around so far. So it looks like an increasingly odd decision. But then I suppose he might fancy his chances of taking them up at the first time of asking. If they've given him assurances that they'll keep him in place should they go down and he can be the man to take them back up, then perhaps you can understand it. But yeah, a bit of a strange move on paper.
So we'll look at the strengths and weaknesses of Sheffield Wednesday in particular. So Sheffield Wednesday not overly prolific, 13. So before today, so they've lost at home to Norwich today. So 13 goals in 16 home games. So it averages just under 1 goal a game. Their expected goals as well is 0.91, so it indicates they're performing as expected. So it doesn't appear to be down to bad luck or profligate striker or anything. The expected goals against is 1.35, which also tallies. So Sheffield Wednesday are where they are because of performances and nothing much else really. There's no sort of hard luck story there. They've got a curious spread of goals as well, with 6 in open play, 4 set pieces, 2 on goals and a penalty. So at least they have a variety whereby they go and they don't just pretty much score from set pieces like we covered Cardiff the other week, and they have a large proportion from that and other bits. So Darren Moore himself seems to favour a 3-4-1-2 as well. They seem to get the ball down a little bit more, obviously, well, probably a lot more from Tony Pulis. How do you think they're going to come at Huddersfield, and who would you there have as their sort of key player for this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look past Barry Bannon, isn't it? He's been their creative force for years now. He's recently signed a new contract. You mentioned they've not created any goals this season, but he's top of their assist charts. He's made 4 of the ones they have scored. He's chipped in a couple as well. So it's hard to look past him. They've got good options. It's weird that they've not scored more goals because you look at it on paper and you think they've got a few good options at number 10 there. Josh Windass is a decent player. Bannon can play there. Adam Reach has been a good performer for them over the years. Obviously, he can play sort of anywhere. More often on the wing, but he has played sort of behind the striker a couple of times this season. They've got some lad called Elias Kachunga who doesn't seem to be doing much for them. No, I mean, yeah, they've just been underperforming, like all around. I think there's, you can look at it's one thing talking about what they've got on paper, but the brutal truth is they're in a similar sort of position, but worse to where Town were last year, where they have you look at the squad and you think there should be something there, but then you look at the results and you realise there's something wrong.
Something rotten in amongst, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
Under the bed, if you like. So
I think it's just a lot of death by a thousand cuts thing. No one is at 100%. No one is completely firing, and they had a bit of a positive run over Christmas. They won 4 out of 5 over Christmas, and then lost a couple in the new year, and then won 3 out of 4 again. And that they seem to be going all right, and then it's dropped off again. Discipline has been a massive problem for them. They've had 7 red cards this season, which is I think the next closest when I looked the other day was Coventry. It had 4. So.
Where always indicates there's problems within the squad, personality problems, doesn't it? Within the squad there,
you would think so, or just daft decisions being made, even possibly. Just players who are maybe a little bit mentally switched off, not concentrating properly, and
some have got some have got moves lined up. So we're talking about that Liam Shaw potentially off to Celtic for one, Jordan Rhodes linked with our good selves. So There's things all lined up there, isn't there, Stephen? So player focus-wise, the one I've gone for is actually Josh Windass. Josh Windass released from Huddersfield when he was 18, and he doesn't seem overly happy with this still. So whenever he comes up against Huddersfield, he's very much at 100% flying in, and he will look to, if he plays, obviously, he will look to press Naby Sarr, I think, into mistakes, or he tends to play on that right side. So I would keep an eye on Josh Windass. I would prefer Josh to play as a number 10. I think he'd be quite handy as a number 10, but he did leave Rangers citing that he didn't want to play midfield and wanted to be an out-and-out striker. So I think he's maybe doing himself a disservice with that, because he'd be a rather handy number 10. But
better Theo Walcott.
The heart wants what the heart wants, doesn't it? I guess, yeah.
Yeah. David Hartrick's former next-door neighbour, Josh Windass.
There you go. So in terms of Town then, so the strength and weakness of Huddersfield, looking at Sheffield Wednesday, Town have started to steady that rocky ship, if you like, to coin a cliche, and we are looking better defensively. Carlos has decided that pragmatism is the way to go for now. The back 3 against QPR, obviously this isn't a QPR review, but the back 3 against QPR very solid, largely untroubled apart from the one chance for Todd Kane. Against Cardiff, they're excellent. Naby Sarr, in terms of just getting rid of the ball and making sure the ball goes into the middle third quickly. Naby Sarr has looked almost not quite a different player, but a more consistent player whilst doing this as well. And he, you could argue, has been the best player in the last 3-game unbeaten run, if you like.
Yeah, I might go along with that. I think him and Lewis O'Brien have been really up there, particularly sort of the last 2 games. I think Birmingham was sort of encouraging just because it indicated a change of approach, but it wasn't a particularly good performance. It was fine. They deserved the point they got, and it was definitely better than what we'd seen against Derby and Preston. But it was more just, thank God we've seen a change of style. But the Cardiff and QPR performances I thought were really good. On the whole, I think maybe the Cardiff performance was actually better than the QPR performance, to be honest. But not much in it. Probably the 4 points over the 2 games it would be about fair. Although you'd look at the 2 games on their individual merits and say it should have been 6. So there's good, as you say, it's not a review podcast, but there's good reason to take confidence into this game when you look at the fact that Sheffield Wednesday struggled to score goals. You might have said, but Town's defensive record is rubbish at the moment.
Keeping them out now, aren't they?
But they are keeping them out now. 2 clean sheets in a row for the first time since before Christmas. So I think Ryan Schofield in particular has looked really assured the last couple of games. He had sort of 1 flap against Cardiff. He actually had 2, but one of them, when you look at it back, he had a attacker's elbow right in his face, so I'm not holding that against him. QPR didn't put a foot wrong, I didn't think. And as you say, sort of the back line, I think that's a really nice mix they've got there with Rahmani on the right, Richard Keogh in the centre, who's actually done really well the last couple of games, and Naby Sarr, who's been fantastic in the back 3 last
you've
got
to credit Richard Keogh, to be fair. Since this shift in defensive mentality, he's been very key. He's been organising. He's been very switched on, and it's definitely suited the 3 of them, and Rahmani Edmonds-Green as well. It's taken some of the pressure off of him of having to play as well as defend, and he's also shown up. So like you say, there's a really good mix there, and it's really now a case of how do we apply that to Sheffield Wednesday. For me, I've picked a Huddersfield Town key player. you've mentioned him already, and my key player is Lewis O'Brien. So I think the way this potential game could go is neither at the minute you would class as heavy possession sides. So it's not going to be a case of one team knocking on the door for 80 minutes. It's going to be a bit fast, furious, frenetic at points. And really, for me, Lewis O'Brien is the type of player who will drive through from midfield and open doors. And I think that's where Town need to be, because Sheffield Wednesday's midfield is a 4 and then a number 10. So there's no sort of number 6 there. So Lewis driving into those spaces, looking for angles, is going to be really key for me. Who would you pick out, Stephen, as someone who's quite key? Maybe could come back in and occupy that back line as well. And there's a few others potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis would have been my one if you hadn't already taken him, which I think is pretty rude, to be honest. But
I took 2 as well, technically, there, didn't I?
Yeah. Selfish is what it is. No, I mean, as I say, Lewis last couple of games has been excellent. I think he struggled a bit sort of first half of the season when he was coming back from injury, so not knocking him too much for that. But I think last sort of 4 or 5 games he's been good more often than not. Even against Preston, where I thought everyone was poor, he was actually still fairly good. So he's going to be really key, but. Obviously Jonathan Hogg as well. He came back in at QPR, and we know what a massive player he is. That I think everyone knows the stat now that they haven't won without Jonathan Hogg this season. Just him at the base of the midfield is. Having him there is really important. But to be fair, Alex Vallejo was doing a really good job in his absence as well. They've actually got 2 dependable number 6s now. I think maybe they've not missed Hogg just sort of over the last month or so, perhaps as much as they would have done earlier in the season, because Vallejo's much more up to speed now and has looked good. And I'm picking 3 players here, basically.
Name of the team.
But, I mean, Bakuna... is so frustrating sometimes, but he got that goal against QPR, and we know that he's a confidence player. And if there is going to be space in the midfield, then he can perhaps be the danger man popping up as he showed against QPR.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in a couple of weeks' time, I will probably start, well, maybe not a campaign, but I think I will be starting to throw it out there that Jonathan Hogg probably deserves to win his first Huddersfield Town Player of the Season, and hopefully everything goes quite well from now to the end of the season. And if it does, I think it's time that Hoggy got his first true accolade at the club. He's a very deserving player this season.
It sounds like you're throwing that out there now, to be honest, Matt.
I'm going to throw it out there now. This one doesn't get as many listeners as the main pod, so I'll throw it out there.
I know Hartrick would strongly agree with that. To be honest, I would, if you were making me vote now, I would go for it as well. I think he's. It's weird because he doesn't win a huge number of man of the match awards when you look at sort of what the players say are player ratings. But I think if you go in for someone who has just been consistently good all season and gets the team ticking, and who, I mean, the stats show they really struggle to play without him this season, and yeah, he's been so important. I think he's been excellent, and Carlos Corberán loves him as well for good reason.
So did David Wagner and every other manager, didn't they? Apart from maybe Jan, but he's really a constant in a team of inconsistencies. So great stuff for Hoggy. So in terms of Town, so it's going to be a tough game. We're looking at this edge to edge. Where do you think Town do have the edge though, Stephen? Just very quickly,
everywhere.
Or where they could use it to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I sort of highlighted in the 5 conclusions, we've had a criticism this year that the midfield has never really clicked, and that's why I sort of wanted to name all 3 of them when you asked for a key player, because I feel like they have done a lot more over the last couple of games, and that's really positive. And I think that's where it's going to be won and lost. I mean, quite often you see games come down to a midfield battle, but I think if you can dominate that territory, because that's where it was done last time, because we saw Wednesday just sort of kept backing off, and it just let Town go at them, similar to, again, what QPR did, the game just after that. So I think if they do that and the midfield can get the run at them, then that's where you're going to win the game.
Fantastic. So if you're listening, Carlos, Stephen's just given his critique there, so I'm sure he doesn't. But there we go. Right then, Stephen. So our feature, Return to the Mac. So you can feel free to sing the intro music there if you want. So, nope, no singing. So a player that you would bring back from the past to play in this game. So we're looking for a player who would make a difference in this Sheffield Wednesday to Huddersfield game. Someone who perhaps could tilt the game in our favour. David Hartrick was due to be with us, but he's had to unfortunately pop away and do something. So all the best, Dave. But he did send us the Return to the Mac contender, if you like, and he's gone for Jacob Butterfield. So Jacob Butterfield didn't leave in the greatest of terms, but when he was here, he was a great player, really, under Chris Powell. And I think in this system in the midfield that we've got, a player that can play as almost a box-to-box 8, would you say, an attacking box-to-box 8? Jacob Butterfield could really, if you transplant 2015 Jacob Butterfield into this team, I think that would be quite an excellent choice, really, into the system that we choose. Who have you gone for, Stephen? Because Dave's gone for a good one there that we've not had before. And I think you were going to try and search out somebody that had not been named before as well, hadn't you?
The Butterfield midfield agency. Bon. No, I've gone for a player whose name I have to say very carefully, which is Jack Hunt. I know he's not a very popular figure with Huddersfield Town fans, to say the least, but we've there's no doubt.
It was a song, wasn't there, last year about Jack Hunt? That was rang around.
Yeah. I imagine there was some creative rhyming going on there.
No, there was no rhyming. It was.
No, he was a fantastic player, though. When he came through, it was so clear that he was much too good for League One. I remember there was a spell where they basically just didn't play a winger in front of him. They just gave him the whole right wing and just said, just go and be two players. And I think Aaron Rowe has been a bit of a discovery recently, but it's almost by default that I've gone for a fullback because the centre forwards I think have looked better. I think you've got good options there with Sonogo and Campbell has been playing well, and Benza did all right, not amazing, but all right against QPR. I think the system suits all of the options they've got as a front two, and people will laugh at this, but Danny Ward is back fit now. So, not there. Central midfield, I talked about, I think they've finally got the right mix. I don't particularly want to bring a midfielder in. Centre back, goalkeeper, same deal. So, sort of by default, I've landed on a full back, and I tried to go for someone that's not been said, and as you know, Matt, the entire 2016-17 side has pretty much been claimed.
By Brady,
yeah, so I couldn't have Tommy Smith or Chris Lerver, so I'm going to say stick Pippa back out on the left where he got that assist against QPR, and Jack Hunt can go in on the right.
Oh, careful! Right, so the player that I've decided to pick is also a fullback, but he's going to be a left back. It's probably more left back than flying left wing back, if you like. But I think in a 3-5-2 system, I'm going to go back to 1991, 1992 to a player who comes from Huddersfield, played left back for us that season, got up and down the flank brilliantly. He then had a transfer for, I think, £300,000 to Southampton and played quite a lot in the Premier League for quite a while. And the player I've picked out is Simon Charlton, who was really the first sort of proper left back I saw at Huddersfield, and he was genuinely excellent. So I'm going to go for Simon Charlton to cover while Harry Toffolo's injured, and you're going to switch Pippa across to the left and bring in Jack space Hunt, and then Dave's gone for Jacob Butterfield as an attacking central midfielder. All three good options. We'll put that to the vote on Twitter, and I can guarantee you, Stephen, Jack Hunt's not going to win that vote. But
no, absolutely not. I'd love to go on a space hunt.
A space hunt.
Yeah, get some space suits and some harpoons. Go whaling on the moon. Why not?
Cheese and whales. Sounds great. Right, so it's time for our second feature now, which is You Are the Coach. It's time for us to don David Wagner's blue baseball cap, Carlos's skinny chinos, Mark Robbins' glowering expression as we try to predict what will happen as we are the coach. Right, so this is where you would pick your starting 11, Stephen, and go for a prediction and a scoreline of the game itself. Mr. Hartrick obviously did send in his information, and he said he would go for the same 11 that played against Cardiff, which would mean not picking Jonathan Hogg. He didn't give me a score prediction, though, but I'm sure we'll get one from him at some point.
I think he'd go for a Town win. He doesn't think much of Sheffield Wednesday.
Fair enough. Stephen's put that in for you. So what's your starting 11 then, Stephen? What do you do? Do you stick or twist?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Schofield in goal. Back three is the same. I think, I don't know, D'Amico Dehaney actually did really well when he came off the bench against QPR. I wonder if he's, and I know that he's not your favourite player, Matt, but I wonder if he's sort of made a claim to stay in at right back, Pippa across to the left. So I'll go with that. Why not? I think I would disagree with Dave. I think keep Hoggy in. Bacuna and O'Brien, I think, have done enough to keep their place. And then it's basically then whether you stick with Isaac and Benter or whether you go with Yaya Sanogo up front. And I think that comes down to how Town are going to play. You know, if you're going to go over the top, you obviously want Sanogo. If you're going to try and press from the front and force errors out of Sheffield Wednesday, then perhaps you do want to keep Mbenza in there, because that was the whole point of putting him in at the weekend. But I'll go with Sanogo. I'm gonna sort of take a punt that the other part of the reason that he left Sanogo out was so that he could play in this game. So Sanogo alongside Campbell up top for me.
Yeah, that was my theory as well. So what's your score prediction?
I think Town will win it. I mean, I think almost the QPR result has almost downgraded this from a must-win to just a must-not-lose. I don't think it's a disaster if they don't win, although obviously you've got difficult games coming up after the international break, so if you can get points on the board, then that would ease a lot of tension. I think they will get the win. I think a 2-0 could be on the cards, another 2-0.
Okay, so the team, I've gone for a couple of changes, just mostly resting rather than anything malicious. So Ryan Schofield,
resting ahead of a 2.5 international break is a break.
Yeah. So it's all about whether they're in the red zone to play the 90 minutes, though, Stephen. You know. Yeah,
no, it's true. If players have played a lot of games minutes recently, then yeah, fair enough.
So I'm going to give Ryan Schofield a lot of credit. I would have probably rotated him out a couple of weeks ago, but I thought he's come out of that little tricky spell with a great performance against QPR. So he keeps his shirt, Romani, Edmonds Green. I quite like the balance he brings on the right of the back three, so he sticks, as does Naby Sarr, who's a star player at the minute. But I've actually put Keogh/Stearman at the back, so whoever's the fittest to play between the two of them, I don't really care which one gets it.
No, they are much of a muchness when you look at their stats, to be honest.
Exactly, yeah. So either or, generally. And I've gone for Pippa on the right. Aaron Rowe keeps his place for me on the left. I've got Jonathan Hogg in the side alongside Lewis O'Brien. But I've actually picked Dwayne instead of Bacuna. I know Bacuna got the goal. It's just when you go away to somewhere like Sheffield, I just think you need shape and discipline, and I think Dwayne offers that a little bit more than what Bacuna does. And then up front, I've gone for Yaya Sanogo and Fraser Campbell, and I'm going to go for 0-0. I think what you said is very true, in that the game's been downgraded from a must-win to a must-not-lose. I agree with that fully, and I think if the game gets to sort of 65, 70 minutes, I think Town might just go, do you know what, 0-0 draw, it's not that bad, and then just see it out. And I don't think we'd be unhappy with that.
I think a lot of fans would. I think you and I probably look at. Yeah, I think a lot of fans will see this as a must-win just because of the fixtures they've got coming up, because they've got Brentford and Norwich. As the next two after this, I think people will see it as a wasted opportunity if they don't get a win here, particularly given the form Wednesday are in. But it's all about how the game unfolds. I mean, people complained about the 0-0 at Hillsborough last season, and that point didn't do a huge amount for them last year. And people were complaining about that game. I thought it was actually a really entertaining match. There was a surprising amount of goalmouth action for a 0-0. So yeah, I mean they've ground out a result against QPR, and they did likewise. I thought it was such a good performance against Cardiff off the ball, and they just needed to take their chances at the other end. A bit more excitement, a bit more verve against Sheffield Wednesday would be quite nice, to be honest.
It would be, yes. No, win would be great, but again, if it does end up a draw, I'm not going to spill milk over it. But there we go. So that's it for this week. So thank you for coming on, Stephen. Good to see you again on the podcast, and your milk and cream combo going on there as well.
So you can spill milk all over it.
Yeah, we've seen that on social media before, haven't we? So thanks for coming on, Stephen. Thanks for listening. And we will be back as well this Thursday with a live episode, and it's our 100th. So we've got a couple of things planned for Thursday. Speak to you then, and thank you and farewell.
Oh, what a night. Late in May in 2017, Schindler scored, it was a heaven dream. What a feeling, what a night. Oh, what a night. Wagner singing, we are Premier League. The greatest sight St. George's Square did see. What an evening, what a night. Oh, I got a funny feeling when he walks and a fence, and then the commentator yelled he takes that chance. Oh, what a night. Lost so safe and mesmerizing me. Low charge and flattened old Chelsea. Stamford Bridge, oh what a night. Whoa, I got a funny feeling when he walks and a fence, and then the commentator yelled he takes that chance. Oh, what a night. Oh,